Hello, and welcome back to Justin Connects. My name is Ashley. Today, I'm going to discuss how poverty affects the LGBTQ plus Q community and how, as individuals, we can help negate these disparities. Imagine waking up in the morning, already feeling worried. You have rent coming due. The refrigerator's getting empty. Your car needs repairs. You need to schedule a doctor's appointment, but you're not sure how you're going to pay for it. And then, on top of those worries, imagine wondering whether the people around you will accept you for who you are. For many LGBTQ plus individuals, these aren't hypothetical concerns. They're realities that can overlap and build on one another. Poverty is often talked about as a number, a household income, a poverty line, a percentage. But behind every number is a person, someone trying to make it through the day, someone trying to take care of their family, someone trying to feel safe, someone simply trying to have a place where they belong. Research consistently shows that LGBTQ plus individuals experience poverty at higher rates than the general population. In 2021, approximately 17% of LGBTQ plus adults were living in poverty, compared to about 12% of non-LGBTQ plus adults. For transgender people, the rate was approximately 21%. And among LGBTQ plus households with children, it was around 26%. These numbers tell us that economic hardship isn't affecting every LGBTQ plus individual in the exact same way. Some groups face significantly greater risk. Transgender people, LGBTQ youth, people of color, parents, older adults without strong support networks can face particularly difficult economic circumstances. But why? It's important to say this clearly. Being LGBTQ plus does not cause poverty. Rather, LGBTQ plus individuals can encounter social and economic barriers that make financial stability more difficult to achieve. Consider something as basic as having a job. A job is supposed to provide stability, a paycheck that helps pay rent, buy food, maintain transportation, and take care of our families. But LGBTQ plus Q workers can experience discrimination and harassment in the workplace. A recent William Institute study found that 34% of LGBTQ plus employees reported experience employment discrimination at some point in their lives, and 37% reported workplace harassment. For transgender employees, the numbers were even more concerning. Approximately 82% reported experiencing discrimination or harassment at their work at some point in their lives. About 1/3 of transgender employees said that they had left a job because of how they were treated. Think about what that can mean. Leaving a job isn't simply leaving a workplace. It can mean losing a paycheck. It can mean losing health insurance. It can mean falling behind on rent. It can mean not having enough money for groceries. And eventually, it can even mean losing the very stability that a job was supposed to provide. For some LGBTQ plus young people, the economic safety can disappear even earlier. Home is supposed to be a place where you can feel safe. But when a young person comes out and experiences rejection from family members, that safety net can be threatened. The Trevor Project has found that 40% of LGBTQ plus young people reported experiencing food insecurity, homelessness, or other unmet basic needs. In LGBTQ plus youth who have experienced homelessness reported suicide attempts at a rate of 24%, compared with 9% among those who have never experienced homelessness. These numbers are heartbreaking, but they also tell us something important. The problem isn't that LGBTQ plus young people are somehow less resilient. The problem is that people need support. When someone loses their home, their family support, their financial security, their sense of belonging all at once, that's an enormous amount for anyone to carry. And this is where poverty begins affecting much more than someone's bank account. It begins affecting their mental health. When you're constantly worrying about food, housing, transportation, employment, or healthcare, your mind doesn't get much of an opportunity to rest. You may find yourself thinking, how am I going to pay for this bill? What happens if my car breaks down? Can I afford groceries this week? What if I get sick? What if I lose my job? These worries can make it harder to sleep, concentrate, plan ahead, and regulate emotions. Research has found connections between food insecurity among lesbian, gay, and bisexual adults and depression, anxiety, serious psychological distress, and lower life satisfaction. And for LGBTQ plus people, financial stress can sometimes be combined with another form of stress, what researchers call minority stress. That can include experiences of discrimination, stigma, rejection, or feeling like you have to constantly protect yourself or explain who you are. Imagine carrying financial stress in one hand and the fear of rejection in another. That is a heavy burden for anyone. And eventually, that burden can become emotional. Poverty can create feelings of fear, frustration, sadness, shame, exhaustion, and hopelessness. Someone may begin to feel like they're failing, even when circumstances they're facing are much bigger than any one person. And this is something we should all remember when we talk about poverty. Financial hardship can make people blame themselves for problems they did not create. A person may think, I'm not working hard enough. I'm not doing enough. Everyone else seems to have it together. But sometimes the reality is that someone working incredibly hard still does not have enough resources. And that does not make them a failure. It makes them a human. There are also physical consequences. Poverty can make it harder to access healthy food, safe housing, transportation, healthcare, and medications. Sometimes people delay going to the doctor because they can't afford the appointment. Sometimes they don't fill a prescription because there are other bills that have to be paid. Sometimes the cheapest food is the only food available. And sometimes people stay in unhealthy or unsafe situations because they don't have the financial resources to leave. These aren't choices people want to make. They're choices people may feel forced to make when their options are limited. And then there's the other part of this conversation that we don't always talk about: spiritual well-being. For people, spirituality is connected to purpose, hope, meaning, community, and belonging. But LGBTQ plus individuals can have a complicated relationship with religious institutions. Some have found incredible acceptance and support. Others have experienced rejection or have felt that they had to choose between their identity and their faith. For someone experiencing poverty, having a sense of meaning and belonging can be incredibly important. This is why community matters so much. A supportive family can make a difference. An accepting workplace can make a difference. A safe home can make a difference. A food pantry can make a difference. An affirming healthcare provider can make a difference. A friend who says, you don't have to go through this alone, can make a difference. And sometimes one supportive person can be the beginning of someone finding stability again. The research gives us reasons to be concerned, but it also gives us reasons to have hope. The Trevor Project research found that LGBTQ plus young people living in very accepting communities reported suicide attempts at much lower rates than those living in very unaccepting communities. That tells us something powerful. The environment around people matters. Support matters. Acceptance matters. Belonging matters. Economic security matters. And compassion matters. When we talk about LGBTQ plus and poverty, we shouldn't ask what's wrong. We should ask what happened. What barriers are they facing? What resources are they missing? And how can we help? Because behind every statistic is a person who wants to feel safe, a person who wants to provide for themselves or their family, a person who wants healthcare when they're sick, a person who wants to come home to a safe place, a person who wants to be accepted. A person deserves dignity. Poverty isn't simply about having enough money. It can affect our mental health, our emotional health, our physical well-beings, our relationships, our sense of purpose, our connection to our community. For LGBTQ plus individuals, these challenges can sometimes be intensified by discrimination, rejection, and isolation. But we are not powerless to change those outcomes. We can create safer workplaces. We can support LGBTQ plus youth. We can provide access to food and housing. We can make healthcare more accessible. We can build communities where people don't have to hide who they are to receive support. And we can choose compassion over judgment. Because sometimes advocacy doesn't begin with a policy. Sometimes it begins with listening. Sometimes it begins with believing someone when they say they are struggling. Sometimes it begins with offering help without making someone feel ashamed for needing it. And sometimes it begins by simply saying, "You belong here." Because everyone deserves the opportunity to live with dignity, stability, connection, and hope. And no one should have to choose between survival and being who they are. Poverty may be measured in numbers, but its impact is deeply human. And when we understand the person behind the statistic, we create an opportunity not to just talk about change, but to become a part of it. Thank you. Please like, subscribe, and share this video with others who may resonate with the information. In the next video, I'm going to discuss how self-awareness is vital to understanding and dismantling systemic issues and how we all play a part. Until next time, may you be blessed with happiness, safety, and peace. Know that you are not alone and that I stand with you.